This is the Sports Bash Warm-Up with Josh Hennig on 97.3 ESPN. Now, live inside the Matt Black Kia Studios, here's Josh Hennig.
There is an asterisk on everything in our worlds right now. There's an asterisk on my son's junior year of high school, my daughter's sophomore year of college. It is not what anyone expected. Remember that, there is so much that the process of getting to anything this year was so dramatically changed. Why would we think the NBA's champion would be treated any differently? Just like probably whoever wins the World Series in baseball.
Or wins the Stanley Cup in the NHL. Josh Hennig here on the warm-up on 97.3 ESPN. That was the words of Adrian Wojnarowski on the Low Post Pod as they were talking about the future of the NBA. And after the NHL announced their layout, their plans for what it would look like when they return, as the NHL and the NBA both plan on returning to play this summer, I just chuckle and shake my head at the people who question, well, this delegitimizes the champion. Or people who say, well, all of these plans ruined the entire season. Well, let's be realistic. Aside from those of us who play fantasy sports through Sportsbet, do we really care about a game in February? Text board is open, 609-403-0973 to get on the conversation. Coming up, it's a Weinberg Wednesday, so Dave Weinberg, as he will, starting this week and every week, will join us on Wednesdays at 1:25. We got a lot to touch on with Dave coming up in just about 25 minutes from now. Your text messages are welcome as well. 609-403-0973. And when I was listening to the Low Post Pod, what Woj said spoke to me, because one of the greatest objections I have heard to the different scenarios for the NBA and the NHL returning and the potential of them skipping the end of the regular season or modifying the end of the regular season to get to a postseason. And it spoke to me because I like the fact that the NHL and the NBA is being creative. At the end of the day, it's entertainment. Professional sports are about giving us the best entertainment product on the court, on the ice, or in terms of baseball and football on the field. It's like the saying, what do you say? Are you not entertained? In The Gladiator, Russell Crowe's character. Are you not entertained? He's screaming there after he has that big moment in the arena and the whole crowd is silent and he is the unexpected winner. And he screams at the crowd, are you not entertained? At the end of the day, you turn on your TV or you go to a game to be entertained. We may not always agree upon different things such as the setup of the entertainment or the logistics of the entertainment, but as long as we are being entertained, is not that the end goal? The NHL commissioner yesterday said on national television that the NHL season's over. We're going right into this 2014 playoff that the NHLPA has affirmed. And if you want more information on the plan for the 2014 playoff, just go to 97.3 ESPN.com. Kevin Durso, our Flyers insider, has been doing an incredible job covering every step of the way of the NHL from the regular season to the moment they shut down the season to today, just giving us all the information we need about not just the NHL, but how it impacts the Flyers. Because it has a legitimate impact on the Flyers. The Flyers were the 4 seed when the season ended. So they do not lose their playoff spot. They are going to be one of the top 4 seeds no matter what. It's seeds 5 through 12, teams 5 through 12 that will decide seeds 5 through 8 in each conference. So the Flyers still have an opportunity to maybe get the number 1 seed. And I know for some people they may say, well, that delegitimizes the regular season. Well, they went through the full season for nothing. To which I say, we live in a world that is completely out of left field now. Our entire lives have been turned upside down. As Adrian Wojnarowski said, guess what? There's an asterisk on everything. Our entire lives have had an asterisk put on it. Our entire world has been put on an asterisk about it. So at the end of the day, are we really going to complain if the Flyers become the number 1 or 2 seed in the Eastern Conference? I'm certainly not. If the 76ers had a chance to move up in the standings after everything that happened this year, and they did, am I really going to be mad about it? Absolutely not. Listen, the top 4 teams in the Eastern Conference, the Boston Bruins, the Tampa Bay Lightning, the Washington Capitals, the Philadelphia Flyers. If the season ends, as they said it did, it's done. You're just going to pick up into this playoff, and the top 4 teams are going to have a round robin to figure out the top 4 seeds, and then teams 5 through 12 are going to decide seeds 5 through 8. I'm fine with it. Because one, at the end of the day, our entire lives have been turned upside down by this pandemic. If I'm really going to be upset that the regular season is over and that maybe the regular season didn't mean as much as it has in the past, listen, our entire lives have a what if on it. Even if there wasn't a pandemic, how many times do you have a what if about something that happens in your life, about a job that you didn't take, or an social opportunity you didn't go to, or an opportunity at your job you didn't take advantage of that someone else got the promotion for? Or even when it comes to sports, you knew you should have bet on said team to win a game, but you didn't place the bet, and you had $20 in your bank account, and you looked at your bank account and you said, daggone it, I had $20 in my sports betting app account, and I didn't place the bet on this team. They were an underdog, and they won, and I'm stuck with the regret of it. Whatever your regret is, at the end of the day, life is full of what if. So with the NHL coming back, I don't mind their being creative. If the NBA wants to play a round-robin play-in tournament for the final 2 seeds in the Eastern Conference, I'm okay with it. Because whatever it takes for us to get quality sports back on the ice and on the court and on the field, I'm okay with all of it. And for baseball's a mess right now because the owners just came out and embarrassed the players by saying, we want to pay you even less money than we originally agreed to. And I'm not going to get into the hardcore numbers because honestly it's frankly confusing. And I know that Jared Diamond of the Wall Street Journal is going to be joining Mike Gill and Hunter Brody today at 3:30. We'll have more details on that because he's got a much better finger on the numbers and how it all breaks down for baseball. But while baseball is insulting its players, the NHL and the NBA is trying to get back out there. Are we really going to be that upset with how they get back out there? As long as everybody is safe, as long as it's medically okay for them to get out there, as long as the players get a training camp and they get warmed up and they get situated, I cannot be upset if the next stage of their season, whether it's the NHL or the NBA, brings a little less value to the regular season. The regular season is too long as it is. You could argue that half of the regular season doesn't matter in the grand scheme of things. Getting to the playoffs is what matters the most. Getting to the postseason is what ultimately matters. Once you're in, you're in. Especially in the NHL, where we've seen 8 seeds win Stanley Cups numerous times. So if the Flyers are the 4 seed, the 2 seed, it doesn't matter. They're in the postseason. That's something to be celebrated. It's something to point to and say, look how they did under the new head coach, Alain Vigneault. Look how they did in this new season with Carter Hart in goal for most of the season. That excites me. And listen, if it takes until the middle of end of July for the NHL to get back on the ice for games that matter again, I'm okay with it. If it takes to mid-late July for the NBA to get back out there, I'm okay with it. I don't sit here and cry over spilled milk. I can't. Because at the end of the day, do any of us really have to worry about anything except for what really matters? And what really matters is that whether it's the NHL or the NBA, they're fighting for their futures. They're fighting for a world that is going to allow them to continue to make money and be a profitable business long term. We can't worry about what happened in the regular season or who got injured when or how that impacts. You know, the Portland Trail Blazers are a team that could genuinely benefit from this delay. The Portland Trail Blazers were without two very important players for a huge chunk of the season. One of them specifically being Yusuf Nurkic, their talented center. He was supposed to potentially come back for the final 10 to 20 games of the season. Now you've given him an extra 2 months to recover and heal. And you're only 3 games out of the 8th seed in the Western Conference. Memphis is 8, Portland is 9, New Orleans is 10. Why not give those teams the chance, all 4 of them, Memphis, Portland, and New Orleans, and say, whoever comes out of those 4 gets the 8th seed? That's exciting. I'm interested in that. Dame Lillard himself came out and said, why would I come back if I don't have a chance to reach the postseason? Lillard came out himself and told Yahoo Sports, he said, look, if I have to play, my team has to play X number of games, I'll be on the bench. I'll hang out with my teammates. I'll be there to support them, but I'm not getting on the court. Because Dame Lillard wants to make the postseason. He wants to win a championship. That's his ultimate goal. The players want to get back to play for multiple reasons. One of them being the players who have a chance to reach the postseason or win a championship, they want to have that opportunity realized. Because to them, if they have a chance to win a championship, that's what matters to some of these guys. Some of these other guys, it's a matter of making sure that their financial situation is secure for next year. For some other guys, it's auditioning for jobs in the future. Whatever their motivation is, the players want to be out there. The players want to get out on the court and play. I haven't heard a single player complain, well, you know, if we come back, my points per game average might be altered. I haven't heard that. I haven't seen that. I haven't heard or seen an NHL player complain that the regular season ended and certain awards that are automatically given to certain players because of how they finished in the statistical standings. I don't see anybody complaining about that. They just want to get back out there and play. If they have a chance to play for a championship, they want to get out there and play. And as Adrian Wojnarowski points out, the NBA is concerned about its future more than anything else at this point.
The legitimacy of the champion, while it is relevant and has value, how about the entire foundation and baseline of the league? And to me, whatever best helps to preserve that, to propel this league into whatever next year is going to look like, is what the NBA should do, not how it affects the legacies of a few different individuals who might be on the championship team.
I've never heard a single person come out and tell Tim Duncan that he's less of a champion because of the 1999 lockout shortened season. Has anybody told David Robinson or Avery Johnson that their championship, they should give it back or it's delegitimized or not important because they won a championship in a lockout season? No. When the NHL lost an entire season years ago, I don't remember anyone telling anybody, well, your career is less of a career because you lost playing time. We need to treat this pandemic just like it is. It's a serious issue that affected everyone. And you know what? Everyone's lives, everyone's professions, everyone's worlds have been completely altered. So whether you're a team like the 76ers, that for all intents and purposes didn't have the best year, you're currently the 6th seed. You're tied with Indiana at 39-26. And if the league comes to you and says, hey, as far as we're concerned about the regular season, you're in. 76ers, Pacers, Heat. But if you have an opportunity to move up in the standings, I don't think any Sixers player is going to say, well, this is bogus because we played all year to get the 6th seed. No, they're going to turn around and say, hey, man, if we have a chance to move up in the standing, let's go. If we have a chance at a maybe easier matchup in the postseason, let's go. I feel pretty confident the 76ers, if things played out a certain way, would much rather play, let's say, certain teams than other teams, like the Brooklyn Nets or the Orlando Magic or the Boston Celtics. They'd rather play those teams than, let's say, the Miami Heat or the Milwaukee Bucks or the Toronto Raptors in the first 2 rounds. If you have the opportunity to avoid some of your stiffest competition, teams that play you a certain way, teams that have a certain style of play that benefits you to win a series maybe a little sooner than later, you should take advantage of it. 609-403-0973 is text board to get on the conversation. Again, it's Weinberg Wednesday. Dave Weinberg coming up in about 8 minutes from now to talk about a lot of different things. Obviously, we'll touch on some about the Eagles, talk a little bit about the match and golf with him as well. 609-403-0973 is text board right now for you to get involved in the conversation. I don't think it delegitimizes anything. Now, listen, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm just totally not understanding the value of the regular season, whatever it may be. But I genuinely believe that if you give people an opportunity to compete, these athletes want to get out there and compete. They're not worried about what happened earlier in the regular season that put them 1 game higher or 1 game lower. You know, the players are concerned about basketball, hockey players specifically. They're concerned about their safety. They're concerned about making sure we're following the medical recommendations of the medical experts and the scientists. They're concerned about the safety on the ice or the court to make sure that they have enough training in place since they haven't played any sports in 2 months. They're concerned about having enough ramp-up time, whether it's 3 weeks, 4 weeks, whatever it is, of a training camp to get ready to resume play. They're concerned about what city they have to go to, how the travel arrangements are being set up. They're concerned about if their families can come with them, if the families can come with them, how is the situation for their families? One of the reasons why the NBA is looking at Disney World, for example, is because you have the opportunity to bring your family to Disney World free of charge. If you're an NBA player, you're on board with that. Of course you are. Listen, here's a beautiful opportunity. If you're a Sixers player and you have a family and you have a chance to take them to Disney World free of charge, and the kids can stay in the hotel, and there's probably going to be some sort of comp situation where the players and their families can go on rides or go on certain events. You know, they can basically shut down Disney World and give it to them for a short amount of time. I mean, come on, you could even have people in the stands in Disney World. What if LeBron wanted to go watch a Clippers game? He could go watch a game between, let's say, the Clippers and the Mavs. And it could be LeBron and his kids sitting in the stands watching the game. Why not? That holds a whole nother spin and interest to the conversation. It's not like those arenas and those courts in Orlando hold a lot of seats anyway. If you ever watched the Orlando Summer League, there's barely any stands for most of those games. And for a handful of those games, there's a few seats here and there. Or if you're the NHL and you go to a city like Columbus, you could have teams playing at the same time as practicing. What if the Columbus Convention Center or Vegas, for example, gets one of their smaller arenas in the casinos and say, we'll set it up for the ice for teams to practice while games are going on. So you could have games operating one day and practice at the same day in different locations in the same bubble town. There's so many ways to do this. But do I really think that players are concerned about what happened in the regular season? I don't think so. These athletes want to go out and play. I don't think they're concerned about their regular seasons. Now, baseball players, that's a whole different conversation. That's a whole different animal right now because the way the owners and the players are treating each other is a totally combustible situation that we've discussed here previously. Personally, if I'm the players, I'm insulted by the owner's financial proposal, as it was pointed out by multiple people who cover baseball. And again, Jared Diamond, baseball writer, will get into with Mike Gill and Hunter Brody more on the details of that coming up at 3:30 on 97.3 ESPN. But as the NBA and the NHL prepare to play, I'm with Woj. I am not concerned about if the champion is that legitimate or if we're hurting guys' stats or legacies. That's very low on the scale of what I'm concerned about. And if that's the thing that we have to point to complain about, I don't care. You know what I care about? I care about people's safety. I care about people's health. I care about quality play on the ice and the court. I care about giving these players the opportunity to go out there if all is given the thumbs up and all the safety precautions are set up and all's a go. That's what I'm concerned about. If you want to put an asterisk next to LeBron James because he won a championship in a pandemic year, I personally can't agree with you on that. If you want to put an asterisk on Alex Ovechkin's career because he has a chance to win a scoring title or another award on a shortened season, I can't work with you on that. If you're concerned about what city they're going to go to, the bubble city, because one city may be a better setup to protect the players, to protect everybody involved than another city, because one state has a lower rate of infection, a lower rate of hospitalization than another, I can work with you on that. But I can't work with you if you're going to tell me that the NHL, the NBA's plan to come back makes the regular season not mean anything. At the end of the day, the regular season is of little consequence to me. What's best for the NHL and the NBA moving forward and what's best for the players moving forward, that's what concerns me. And I understand people view athletes as pampered. People view athletes as a lot of things. I just don't care about certain things. That's just me. Coming up next, again, it's a Weinberg Wednesday, 609-403-0973 is the text board. Dave Weinberg joins us next, as he does each and every Wednesday. Talk more about a bunch of different things right here on the warm-up. Josh Hennig hanging out with you here on 97.3 ESPN FM and the 97.3 ESPN mobile app. Josh back here on the warm-up on 97.3 ESPN. As I mentioned earlier, it is the Weinberg Wednesday every Wednesday here on the warm-up. Dave Weinberg, longtime Eagles beat writer, guy who's covered South Jersey sports for a very long time. He joins me each and every week, talk about everything that's going on in the world of sports each and every week. And he joins me now on the Boardwalk Honda Hotline here on 97.3 ESPN. Dave, how you doing today?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good. And, of course, later today, you got your extra points column going up, and it's going to be talking about something that you, me, and 6 million other people around the country and the world were watching on Sunday. It's about the match. And, I thought it was interesting, Dave, about the fact that, you look at the Jordan documentary, got all these viewers, and a golf match that, frankly, had two guys who are probably on the lower scale of talented athletes who play golf, but 6 million people tuned in to watch it. I think that says a lot about where we are right now, that people are so hungry for some sort of sports and some sort of live entertainment, that they tune into something that also happened to raise $20 million for charity.
Yeah. I thought you're right. People are so starved for any kind of sort of live sports event. I mean, I guess they're getting tired of watching baseball from overseas or cornhole contests. But the fact that you had Tiger and Phil, who are two of the most successful golfers in history, plus Tom Brady and Peyton Manning, who may not be the best golfers, but they're pretty good for being non-professionals. Plus, being pretty good, strong personalities and NFL legends. You combine those two, it was a really cool event. I had a great time watching it.
One of the funny moments also, and you're going to write about it in your extra points column later today, is about Peyton Manning do a little trash talking, saying maybe I should have brought Eli Manning to be my caddy. Then he brings up Nick Foles, and Brady says, "Oh, that's a cheap shot." And then at one point, Tiger Woods says, "Oh, I'm wearing Falcons colors," and Brady says, "Oh, I don't care about the Falcons. The Eagles make me cringe." And it's actually pretty incredible to see these raw moments from an athlete who's considered one of the greatest of all time, Dave. And he specifically points to an Eagles championship team that beat him as something that still bothers him.
Yeah, I mean, that speaks to the competitiveness of Tom Brady. I mean, everybody mentioned about, Michael Jordan and with the Last Dance and what a fierce competitor he is. But I have a feeling Brady is every bit as competitive. And it was, it was mixing with that and the fact that he was having a little fun at his own expense. That was kind of cool too. Then you had Nick Foles chiming in on Twitter. If you really want to get under his skin, just mention Philly special. I mean, it was just it was a really really fun event, and it's nice that Tom Brady, he has this reputation of being kind of aloof and standoffish, but he proved that he has a sense of humor that might not be as good as Peyton Manning's, but it's pretty good.
Would you like to see more of these type of the match events where you see golf pros like Tiger and Phil paired with other athletes?
Oh, absolutely. Like I had mentioned on Twitter, I guess when it first happened, Mike Trout, who everybody knows from around here being from Millville, that he's an avid golfer. I would love to see him get a crack at this, maybe with Brooks Koepka or even with Tiger or Phil or somebody. But the more you can get athletes from other sports involved in this, and the fact that it raised millions of dollars, $20 million for charity or for COVID-19 relief. I would love to see that. If they can work out the details, obviously they probably couldn't do it in the future in the spring with Trout, with baseball season hopefully coming back at some point. But I would definitely love to see this. Steph Curry's a great golfer. There's a lot of other guys. Even Charles Barkley being a horrible golfer, but I bet he'd be a lot of fun to watch.
You mentioned Mike Trout. He's one of those guys who I think people, unless they followed his career in high school to baseball, so like someone you have, Dave, they don't know about how great and talented of an all-around athlete he was. Can you touch on a little bit about how athletic Mike Trout is and how he's one of those guys where, in my opinion, he feels like the kind of person, if he would have committed himself to any sport, he could have been successful?
Yeah, you're probably right there. People probably don't know. I mean, it's great to see the fact that, there's in this age of specialization where, parents are pushing their kids to a sport, just one sport, and having them concentrate on that. But Mike was the starting point guard for Millville High School's basketball team. He was the quarterback for Millville High School's freshman team before he decided to just stick with baseball and basketball. But he's an avid athlete. I mean, he follows the NBA, he follows the Sixers. Everybody knows the Eagles season ticket holder. Tremendous golfer. I mean, he kind of took up the sport just recently, but he already has a hole-in-one on his resume, and it's probably maybe like a 12 or 14 handicap. And you saw, I guess people saw the videos of him at a Topgolf thing, I guess it was, or but just smashing drives 400 yards or something like that, something ridiculous. I mean, he's just one of those guys who, like you said, natural athlete, and whatever sport he picks up, he'd be good at.
Dave Weinberg joining us for a Weinberg Wednesday here on the warm-up on 97.3 ESPN. Of course, make sure you're following on Twitter at Dave Weinberg 19. Dave, kind of sticking with the golf, we didn't have a lot of chance to talk about it last week because we were short on time, but I wanted to follow up with you on the news about the ShopRite LGBGA coming back. I spoke with Gil Capps of the Golf Channel, and he talked about how, he likes the fact that, the LPGA is giving the places that have the loyalty to golf the opportunities to keep with their events. He mentioned, what the PGA Tour is doing next month with their events and what the LPGA is doing with the ShopRite Classic. Just touch on a little bit about what the ShopRite Classic means to South Jersey.
Yeah, like we talked about last week, it's an iconic event, really. I mean, it started in 1986 or 88, something like that. And there was a brief period where they were having some leadership troubles with the LPGA, some economic issues kind of like forced it to go on hiatus for a couple of years. But it's been back, and it's more popular than ever. And like I said last week, it's probably the most popular sporting event in our area. I mean, you get thousands of people that fly out to see you every weekend during a tournament to watch the country's best players, and it's the world's best players. I'm sorry, and yeah, it's just the fun of it, and it's really a credit to the LPGA, like you mentioned, the fact that they're showing some sort of loyalty to the events that have meant the most to them. I mean, it's not a major, but it's pretty close in terms of purse money, in terms of getting they usually get the top players every year. Very vastly popular, both on television and in person. So yeah, I'm really happy that it's back. It's a shame that they had to move it, but the fact that they were willing to do that to keep the event on the schedule says a lot about what they think about the ShopRite LPGA Classic and the area in general.
Also, it's interesting that the way it's logistically placed now because of the changing of the schedule, that the ShopRite LPGA is going to be in many ways a tune-up for other LPGA major tournaments. So I think that's a cool new twist added as well.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, in past years, it's been kind of like a tune-up for U.S. Open, the LPGA U.S. Open. You'll see you've seen a lot of players would play the ShopRite Classic, and then the next week to play in a qualifier in a local another local course just to try to get into the U.S. Open. So it's it's just it's kind of like a warm-up act, if you will. But yeah, that kind of ensures that you're going to get the top players. They want to fine-tune their game. They want to work out any kinks that they have, just so they can be ready for when the majors roll around.
Dave, one of the topics that also came up yesterday, you're someone who covers the Eagles for a very long time, was about Doug Pederson. And I thought the person who messaged the show was interesting yesterday because they believe without a shadow of doubt, that Doug Pederson is one of the 5 best coaches in the NFL. I wanted to ask you, as someone who's covered the Eagles, you've seen Doug Pederson in his multiple iterations from a player to a coordinator to now a head coach. What is your perception of Doug Pederson's standing in the NFL?
Oh, I would definitely put him in the upper echelon. The fact that he won a Super Bowl, speaks volumes for what he's able to accomplish. And he has the respect of other coaches around the league. Plus, his players regard him very highly, and they want to pay attention to what he has to say and to what he does. It's he has this system that he has extreme confidence in, but he's also like he's not a dictator. It's never like my way or the highway. He has a veterans committee that he relies on during the week, that meets once a week. So he's willing to take players' opinions into account. Doesn't seem to just go by the book. He's willing to take chances to be creative. Plus, I think being a former player himself helps a great deal. The fact that he was in the league for so long, and not a star, but he was around long enough to learn from some of the great coaches like Don Shula, Andy Reid, and what have you. I think he's done a great job of blending all their philosophies in with his own. He learned a lot during his time both as a backup quarterback and as an offensive coordinator and assistant coach, and you're seeing the fruits of that now. And it's I would definitely put him right up there near the top. I don't know about the top, but I guess Bill Belichick obviously occupies the top of the pedestal. But he's right in there with Sean Payton and some of the other guys. I think is one of the best coaches in the league.
You mentioned about the fact of all of Doug's experience as a player. Have there been any moments or any times that Doug has, either during a game or in a post-game presser or anything, that stood out to you as someone who covers the Eagles and says, you know what, that's a moment where, because of his experience in the NFL, allowed him to do this or say this and have that understanding?
I think it mostly comes into bearing when he talks about the quarterbacks. Carson Wentz, Nick Foles when he was here, even Josh McCown, what have you. Having been a backup for most of his career, if not all of his career. He knows how quarterbacks think. He knows how what they want to accomplish, and I think that's where his main strength is when it comes to. He's often referencing his days as a backup in Green Bay or Miami or what have you. Even with the Eagles when he was. People probably don't remember, but when McNabb was drafted in 1999. Pederson was the starter for the first half of the first year, while Andy let Donovan, grow and learn in the system. So I think all that experience is where you really see it when he comes to dealing with his quarterbacks and developing them and making the most of their abilities.
Dave, you wrote one of your most recent Extra Point columns about how Doug brought in Phil Jackson onto the virtual team meeting. What does it say about Doug that he's willing to bring in, whether it's a Phil Jackson or, Kobe Bryant or Brett Favre or whoever it may be to talk to the team? What does it say about Doug as a coach? Yeah,
he's willing to accept opinions and from outside influences. He's not just straight up football guy. And by the way, he's an avid golfer too. As he plays in a celebrity event out in Lake Tahoe every year. I've seen him at Ron Jaworski's event over at Blue Heron a couple of times. So yeah, he's willing to study philosophies from other coaches, from other athletes, from other sports, and incorporate them into what he's trying to preach and what he's trying to teach. And he's a very versatile guy who, and if he thinks there's somebody out there that can maybe motivate his team, he's not afraid to have them speak to the team, as you saw with Phil Jackson, who's now on everybody's mind as a result of The Last Dance, and one of the greatest NBA coaches in history. So the fact that Doug brought him in, that was kind of cool, I thought.
Dave, speaking of the Eagles, I know the NFL has stated they're going to try to see if they can have some mini camps or some sort of off-season camp for teams late in June. Do you think because of the timing of it that logistically can work? And how are the Eagles, do you believe, prepared, logistically and otherwise for a potentially small mini camp ahead of their training camp just a few weeks after that?
They seem to be ready, prepared for any scenario. I think they've made provisions for, either an entire training camp or a partial training camp or some mini camps to go with the training camp. They seem to have all their bases covered, just when I can tell from their virtual interviews and stuff. So I'm not really sure how the logistics would work. But I'd like to think that they're pretty well prepared for whatever scenario comes about. And like we had mentioned before, I think they're maybe ahead of the curve on some other teams when it comes to getting ready for a season where, because they have such stability at the top with Doug, with Howie Roseman and what have you, they and the rest of the NFC East is kind of in flux, going in with new coaches and new general managers, so new coordinators. So the players that have been here for a little while, they don't have to relearn everything. They already know they can hit the ground running. The rookies, of course, have to take some time to learn the system, but I think that kind of puts the Eagles ahead of the curve a little bit when it comes to being ready for a season if and when it happens.
Do you think at times, whether it's those of us who cover teams or maybe fans, don't always value stability and leadership as much when it comes to sports?
Yeah, I think there's probably a degree of truth to that. Yeah, it's a kind of underestimated trait, I think, and a strength that and the Eagles have always done a pretty good job. I mean, the Chip Kelly reign being the exception, but you had Andy Reid here for so long, and now it looks like Doug Pederson is going to be here for a while. It's a real credit to Jeffrey Lurie. I think the fact that he values stability and loyalty, and I think he's done a great job of sticking with what works. I mean, again, the Kelly thing, I'm going to kind of throw that off to the wayside here because that evidently didn't work. But the fact that he was willing to take a gamble there was kind of neat. The fact when Chip Kelly hadn't been on the minds of too many people, but I guess he wanted to try to go against the grain. Having Andy here for so long, maybe try something different, see if it worked. Obviously, it didn't. But I kind of think the fact that they have a coach and a general manager in place for so long. It was Joe Banner before Howie Roseman. I think it's a big asset for them, and it always has been.
He is Dave Weinberg. You can follow him on Twitter at Dave Weinberg 19. His Extra Points column comes out later today where he talks about the match, Nick Foles, Mike Trout's love of golf, and more. Again, follow him on Twitter at Dave Weinberg 19. And every Wednesday he joins us for a Weinberg Wednesdays. All guests do on the Boardwalk Honda Hotline. Dave, appreciate the time. We'll catch you next week.
Sounds great. I appreciate you having me.
Appreciate you joining us. 1:44 here on a Wednesday. Josh Hennig on the warm-up on 97.3 ESPN, leading you up to Mike Gill, Hunter Brody on the Sports Bash today on 97.3 ESPN. They'll have more Eagles talk coming up at Football at 4 with Jeff Mosher from Inside the Birds. Joins them every Wednesday. He joins them on Mondays and Wednesdays for Football at 4 on the Sports Bash. Powered by InsideTheBirds.com on 97.3 ESPN FM. And don't forget about the 97.3 ESPN mobile app, powered by First Bank of Sea Isle City. Final segment here on the warm-up on 97.3 ESPN. Josh Hennig hanging out with you. One more segment here. Of course, text board is open, 609-403-0973. To get on the conversation. Before we get to the text, I did want to follow up on what Dave said, because one of the reasons why I laid out so intensely as I did for the Eagles being the favorites in the NFC East had to do with the Eagles' stability. And Dave brought it up about the fact that because the Eagles are prepared for whatever scenario comes, if they get a mini camp later this month, or if they only got to wait until training camp at the end of July or early August to get back on the field, to get back in the facilities, they're ready for whatever it takes. And I think the fact that you have the same head coach and the same GM and the same defensive coordinator and the same infrastructure in place, it definitely helps the Eagles a lot. And I think that, there's something to be said for the fact that when you have that structure, you have the familiarity, you have that stability, it's very, very valuable. And I don't think at times we put enough value on that element when it comes to sports. The fact that when you have a quarterback be in the same offense with the same coordinator for multiple years, when you have a team, for example, in basketball, from year one to year two, the new head coach, maybe they're trying to figure him out still year one, year two, they're a little more familiar with him, a little more comfortable with him. Remember, it was Jordan's second year under Phil Jackson that he won a championship. I think there's something to be said for the fact that when it comes to athletes on all levels, their development, their success has a lot to do with the stability around them as well. And if you notice the players that don't have a lot of stability, the players that get traded a lot and are constantly on the move, or they're constantly playing for new head coaches, their careers don't pan out as well. Look at a guy like Jerry Stackhouse. That guy got traded from the Sixers to the Pistons, and then the Pistons to the Wizards, and he ends up playing for all these different teams during his career. He doesn't have a lot of time to settle down and find his role and find his place in the league. People say, well, he was a waste of a high pick. Was he a waste of a high pick, or did he kept getting traded and he couldn't find a place in the league? When you look at a guy like Chauncey Billups, he was a high draft pick. I believe he was drafted 3rd overall. It took him going to multiple teams. He had to play for, the Celtics and the Raptors and the Nuggets before he even got to Detroit. And then finally in Detroit, he had a coach and a system that solidified him in his career and made him a potentially basketball Hall of Fame player because of the stability he finally had in one place that gave him his role. Just something to think about with the Eagles going into the 2020 season. That stability, there's a value we need to place on that. 609-403-0973. Dan from EHC chimed in a little bit earlier and said, let's give the essential workers a huge bonus and dedicate the NBA and NHL season to the people that are our heroes. Well, they are doing something similar to that, Dan EHC. I don't know if you saw, but leagues like the NHL, the NBA, the WNBA, Major League Soccer, they have come out with the Real Heroes Initiative, where they are recognizing and celebrating the healthcare workers and the essential workers who are making all of our lives better and safer during the pandemic. So they are doing something like that. And I know that I read that as soon as the world becomes a little bit better when it comes to getting the NHL teams back on the ice and the NBA and the WNBA back on the court, and along with the MLS, that they're going to do special things for the essential workers and the healthcare people and everybody who deserves to be recognized. 14 professional sports leagues have all announced they're a part of this Real Heroes project. And when they're finally able to get back on the field and get back on the court and the ice, they're going to be doing more for those real heroes as well. You know, I don't know how much they can do initially because I know there's still a lot of social distancing guidelines going to be involved. But all the sports, apparently, at least 14 sports leagues, including the NHL, the NBA, the WNBA, and Major League Soccer, are all involved in that project. So they are going to do something in, to celebrate them and to thank them through that project. It's just a matter of getting to the point, Danny HT, where the leagues can get back on the field, get back on the ice, get back on the court to do some of that honoring and that recognition, not just on the court, but, on the broadcast and so on and so forth. I know that the WWE is also involved in that. So it's more than just the main sports. It's also sports entertainment. I know that when the professional tennis tour returns, they're going to do something as well. The PGA Tour plans on doing something. So that is in the works. Your idea about, dedicating the play and the seasons to these essential people who are making all of our lives better and safer, that is in the works, Dan. So I can promise you that is coming. That is on the way, and we're going to see that in short order. All right, appreciate everybody jumping into the show today, listening in. Thanks, Dave Weinberg. Another great Weinberg Wednesday. We'll do that each and every Wednesday here on the warm-up on 97.3 ESPN.